This natural disaster story begins by introducing John, an architect who is extremely serious about his profession. Despite having a lot of money, his married life was not going well. Due to differences in their conversations and opinions, he and his wife often fought. Eventually, things escalated to the point where they decided to start living separately. All of this was affecting their son, Ben, who had done nothing wrong but had to endure the consequences of John and his wife Emily's fights. Ben did not like these constant conflicts, but he silently endured everything. One day, John was shown working at his construction site when he suddenly remembered that it was Ben's birthday. Unlike previous times, he was determined not to forget his son's special day. So, he decided to give Ben the best gift possible. He would apologize to his wife, Emily, and try to reunite their family. Although John's ego had always prevented him from admitting his mistakes, this time, he set everything aside and approached Emily to apologize. He admitted that everything that had happened was entirely his fault. Emily was shocked to see John behaving this way, as he had never apologized like this before. However, she understood the situation and also apologized to him. Finally, after a long time, John and Emily reunited, and Ben was overjoyed. It was the best birthday gift he could have ever received. He happily spent time with his parents, and all his worries faded away. Ben had always overthought things, but in the end, all he truly wanted was a perfect family, which he finally got. However, just then, a sudden news broadcast reported that numerous meteoroids were falling toward Earth. According to scientists' research, there were thousands of them, and they would collide with Earth within a short time. One of these meteoroids was moving rapidly and crashed into the Bermuda Triangle. Scientists had predicted its landing only 5 to 10 minutes before impact, but once it struck, it generated massive shockwaves. The shockwaves were so intense that everyone inside their homes could feel them. It felt as if an earthquake would strike at any moment and the entire Earth would be destroyed. Parents and children alike were gripped with fear. John stepped outside to see what was happening, only to witness a massive shockwave rushing toward them. This shockwave was caused by the impact of the meteoroid, and it was so forceful that everything around started breaking apart. John was thrown to the ground with immense force. Birds flying in the sky became disoriented and fell. Realizing the gravity of the situation, John rushed back to his family and warned them to stay alert. As the news spread that more meteoroids were about to strike Earth, panic took over. Parents feared for their children's lives. Suddenly, John received a message. It clearly stated that the military forces had selected his family for evacuation. They were among the few families chosen to be taken to a safe location. The government had decided to protect a select group of families from the devastating impact of the meteoroids. But when the neighbors found out about this, they started resenting John. They couldn't understand why his family was given special treatment while they were left behind. Soon, they began seeing John as selfish and privileged. Despite the tension, John's only concern was his family's safety. He quickly followed all the protocols and prepared to leave with Emily and Ben. It was revealed that Ben had diabetes, so Emily made sure to pack insulin injections for him, knowing he would need them regularly. As John and his family got into their car and were about to leave, a desperate neighbor stepped in front of them. She pleaded with John to take her daughter with them to safety. Tears streamed down her face as she begged for help. But John had no choice. He couldn't take her daughter because it was against the evacuation protocols. The military had strictly chosen specific families, and they couldn't bring anyone else along. The government was treating the selected families as if they were the only ones who mattered, leaving the rest to perish. It was as if ordinary people were not even considered human. But John was helpless. He had no choice. Without stopping to help, he drove away with his family. John arrived at a military airport where the chosen families were being gathered for evacuation. Among them were politicians, businessmen, and other influential people. It was clear that the government had played its cards wisely, prioritizing those who could offer political benefits. The common people were left behind without a second thought. As John, Emily, and Ben made their way inside the restricted area, soldiers were stationed everywhere, guiding the selected families toward the evacuation planes. But suddenly, both John and Emily realized they had left Ben's insulin injections in the car. Without the insulin, Ben's life would be at risk. John quickly told Emily, "You and Ben go inside the plane. I'll get the insulin and be back as soon as possible." Without hesitation, he rushed back to retrieve the medicine. Emily, however, couldn't bring herself to board the plane without John. She waited with Ben, growing more anxious as time passed. Minutes turned into what felt like an eternity, and yet, John didn't return. The plane was now preparing for takeoff. Desperate, Emily approached a soldier and pleaded, "My husband hasn't come back yet." The soldier, trying to understand the situation, asked, "Where did he go?" Without thinking, Emily blurted out, "He went to get my son's insulin." Ben has diabetes. That one sentence changed everything. The soldiers immediately stiffened. According to strict evacuation protocols, no one with a medical condition was allowed on the plane. The government wanted only completely healthy individuals to ensure survival under extreme conditions. Now that the soldiers knew about Ben's illness, they refused to let Emily and her son board the plane. Instead, they separated them from the other evacuees and moved them to a different location. John was still nowhere to be seen. And now, Emily and Ben were no longer among the chosen ones. Meanwhile, on the other side, John was shown rushing back with the insulin injections. He pushed forward as fast as he could, determined to get back to Emily and Ben. But when he reached the designated area, they were nowhere to be seen. Confused and anxious, John asked the soldiers about his wife and son, but they refused to provide any information. The plane was about to take off, and all passengers were being ushered inside. John assumed that Emily and Ben must have already boarded since he had told them earlier to go ahead. Clinging to that thought, he followed the crowd and boarded the plane. As soon as all the selected families were inside, the aircraft doors were sealed shut. The engines roared to life, preparing for takeoff. John, however, was frantic. He searched the entire plane like a madman, calling out Emily and Ben's names. But they were nowhere to be found. Panic set in. His hands trembled as he clutched the insulin injections and the medicines he had brought for Ben. A soldier nearby noticed the medication and asked sternly, "Whose medicines are these? Are you a patient?" John quickly responded, "No. These are for my son, Ben. He has diabetes, and he needs his insulin." The soldier's face changed. His expression turned serious as he questioned, "Wait, how did you even get on this plane with these medicines? Didn't you go through the medical checkpoint?" John was confused. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice shaking. The soldier explained, anyone with a medical condition was not allowed to board. If a passenger was found to be sick, they were immediately relocated to another place. It's part of the protocol to prevent the spread of potential infections. John's heart sank. A terrifying thought hit him like a punch to the gut. Had Emily and Ben been taken somewhere else because of Ben's diabetes? Desperation took over. He grabbed the soldier's arm and pleaded, "I need to get off this plane. Let me go. I have to find my family." But the soldier shook his head. "The doors are sealed. No one can enter or exit now. We are taking off." John was helpless. His worst nightmare had come true. He was being taken away, while his wife and son had been left behind. As the engines roared louder, the plane lifted off the ground. Meanwhile, outside, the unselected people, the ones left behind, watched as the aircraft carrying the chosen one soared into the sky. John had narrowly escaped the chaos inside the military aircraft. As riots erupted outside, the unselected civilians, furious at being left behind, began storming the airport. They demanded answers. Why aren't we being taken to safety like the others? What makes them more deserving than us? Their frustration turned into blind rage, and soon, the situation spiraled out of control. The military, overwhelmed by the sheer number of people, saw no other option but to pull out their guns. Shots were fired. Panic spread like wildfire as bodies fell to the ground. But the mob refused to back down. The airport was now a war zone. Amidst the chaos, Emily and Ben found their chance. The soldiers, now fully engaged in holding back the rioters, had momentarily stopped watching over Emily and the other patients. She took Ben's hand and ran. They had to get out of there. As they reached the parking area, Emily noticed John's car. A painful thought struck her. What if John was inside that plane when it exploded? What if he didn't survive? Her heart pounded in fear. But she had no time to dwell on it. Her priority was keeping Ben safe. She quickly pulled out a piece of paper and scribbled a note. "John, I'm taking Ben home. If you see this, meet us there." Emily stuck the note on the windshield of John's car, hoping, praying, that he would find it. With no other choice, she held Ben close and left the airport. Meanwhile, John had somehow survived. Dodging explosions, avoiding soldiers, and fighting through the burning wreckage, he pushed forward. His only thought was getting back to his family. The man driving the car listened carefully as Emily explained her situation. He seemed intrigued, but something about his demeanor felt off. Ben, exhausted and hungry, rested his head on Emily's lap while she kept a firm arm around him. Her heart was still racing from the chaos at the supermarket. Those armed looters could have killed them. She felt somewhat relieved to be inside the car, but she remained cautious. The man finally spoke. "So, you were one of the lucky ones, huh?" His voice carried a strange mix of curiosity and resentment. Emily hesitated before answering. "I don't know if lucky is the right word. We were selected, yes, but they abandoned us the moment they found out about Ben's condition." The man chuckled bitterly. "Typical. The government saves only the ones they think are useful. The rest of us? Left to die. Emily noticed his grip tightening on the steering wheel. Something wasn't right. She cautiously asked, "Where exactly are you headed?" The man exhaled sharply. "Somewhere safe. But let's just say, I don't like the idea of privileged people getting all the help while the rest of us suffer." A chill ran down Emily's spine. She discreetly reached for Ben's hand and squeezed it. A silent message: "Stay quiet, stay alert." The road ahead was long and dark, but Emily realized something terrifying. She and Ben might have just walked into another kind of danger. The man then said, "This is very unfair. At least they should have let this little boy go. His life is at risk." Suddenly, the man turned to Emily and said, "I can drop your child off." But Emily refused because there were massive explosions happening in that area, and she didn't want her son, Ben, to get hurt. Within moments, the man's behavior turned aggressive for some unknown reason. He forcefully pushed Emily out of the car and took Ben with him, heading toward the military airbase. Emily screamed for help, but the man kept walking away. At this moment, people were more focused on saving themselves rather than helping others, which is why no car stopped for Emily. Meanwhile, we see John, who was steadily moving in the direction of Emily's father's house. While walking, John reached a terrace where a group of teenagers was partying. The reason was clear: everyone knew that massive asteroids were about to strike, leading to the end of the Earth. These teenagers were just enjoying their last moments. But for John, his family was the most important thing right now, so he ignored them and continued his search. Looking up at the sky, he could clearly see giant asteroids crashing down, with their shockwaves being even more destructive. John then noticed a truck filled with travelers heading toward Canada. Since Emily's father's house was in Canada, he quickly got inside. Inside the truck, John found many other travelers like him. Among them was a man named Blake, who started talking to John. Blake asked, "Who are you, and where are you headed?" John explained everything to him: how he was an architect, how his family had been selected for evacuation, and how he was now searching for his wife and son, who had gone to her father's house. That's when Blake revealed a shocking truth to John. Blake then said, "Why do you think the government chose you special family members to be taken to a safe place?" John had no idea, but Blake continued, "The main reason is that after these asteroids have finished their destruction, all the damaged buildings will have to be rebuilt. The government wants to save architects like you so that they can reconstruct everything." Blake further explained, "Everyone in my family is a doctor, which is why they are being kept safe. The government needs people like them to take care of officials and ensure their survival. In short, they are only saving people who will be useful to them in the future. They don't care about the rest." Blake also revealed that the soldiers were transporting the selected families to a place called Greenland, which was considered extremely safe. There, underground bunkers had been built, equipped with everything needed to survive the asteroid impacts. However, Blake was confused. "If you have permission to go there, what are you doing here?" John then told him the whole story, how he got separated from his family and how, no matter what, he was determined to find his wife and son. But just then, some of the passengers in the truck, people from very poor families, overheard their conversation. When they realized that John was an architect and had been chosen for safety, they became furious. They believed that if they forced John to stay with them, they might also get permission to go to Greenland. Their anger turned violent, and they started attacking John. John tried his best to defend himself as the mob had completely lost control. Seeing John in danger, Blake stepped in to help. He fought off many attackers, pulling them away from John. But unfortunately, in the chaos, Blake lost his life. John barely managed to escape with his life and ran away from the truck, heading toward an unknown direction. Now, we see the same criminal man who had kidnapped Emily's son, Ben. His wife was also there, and the two of them were making a plan. "We'll use the boy," they decided, because Ben had a verification strip on his hand, proving he belonged to a selected family. The man and the woman took Ben to the military base and presented him to a soldier, pretending he was their son. They claimed that their own verification strips had been lost in the chaos but pleaded to be let inside quickly, as their son was unwell. At first, the soldier was skeptical. But suddenly, Ben started crying and shouted, "These people are not my parents. They kidnapped me." Hearing this, the soldiers immediately separated Ben from them and sent him to a nursing home, where he would be completely safe. Meanwhile, Emily, a kind stranger, had given Emily a lift in a car. She was worried sick about her son and was heading straight to the military base. When she arrived, the place was in complete chaos, with riots and fights breaking out everywhere. Desperate, she rushed to the soldiers and frantically asked if they had seen a young boy matching Ben's description. A second soldier overheard and called her inside. "We have sent all the children to the nursing camp," he informed her. Hearing this, Emily ran like crazy to the nursing camp, searching desperately for her son. Finally, she found a doctor, who assured her, "We have given your son insulin. He is completely safe here." Emily rushed inside and hugged Ben tightly. Ben, seeing his mother, was overwhelmed with joy. He had feared that the kidnappers were going to kill him, but now, he was finally safe in his mother's arms. Emily had made up her mind, she would never leave Ben alone again. She then approached a nurse and gave her her father's address. Emily requested the nurse to help her and Ben reach her father's house. The nurse agreed and told her, "There is a bus going to that address. I will make sure both of you get on it soon." Emily and Ben, exhausted from all the chaos, finally boarded the bus and headed towards her father's house. Meanwhile, John. After a long and difficult journey, John finally reached Emily's father's house. As soon as he arrived, he rushed inside, frantically searching for Emily and Ben. Emily's father was sitting there. John quickly asked, "Have Emily and Ben arrived?" Emily's father was shocked, he had no idea they were coming. That's when John realized they hadn't reached yet. His worry grew even more. Emily's father, however, was angry at John. "How could you be so irresponsible? Your family is your responsibility. You put their lives in danger." John, still breathless from his journey, tried to explain. "The situation is getting worse. I saw the news, massive meteorites are about to hit this area. We need to leave as soon as possible." Inside, John was praying that his wife and son were safe. Then, suddenly, John's phone rang. It was Emily. Her voice came through, "We are very close to the house. We'll be there soon." Hearing this, John and Emily's father both felt immense relief. Without wasting time, they hopped into a truck and rushed to pick them up. A beautiful reunion. Within a few minutes, John finally saw his family. He ran to Emily, pulling her into a tight hug. He was overwhelmed with happiness that she was safe. Ben, too, ran to his father, overjoyed. They all quickly returned to Emily's father's house, finally together again. But here, John talks to his wife, Emily, saying that they need to reach Greenland as soon as possible because only in Greenland have bunkers been built to survive all these disasters. Now that they have a truck, they can travel to Greenland. John gathers all the necessary food and resources and prepares everyone to leave because an asteroid could strike at any moment. However, when John tells Emily's father about their plan, her father refuses. He says, "I am not going with you. I am old now, and I want to spend the last moments of my life with my friends. If death is written in my fate, it will come no matter what I do. But I will pray that no asteroid falls here and that you all remain safe." Emily feels heartbroken because, despite all her pleading, her father does not change his mind. She has no choice but to leave him behind to save her own family. The three of them quickly get into the truck, and Emily starts crying, knowing that if an asteroid strikes, her father will not survive. Leaving everything behind, they head straight toward Greenland. John informs Emily that there is an airplane in Canada that will take them to Greenland, and they must catch that flight at any cost. But suddenly, small asteroid fragments start falling from the sky, causing destruction everywhere. Although the fragments are small, they are moving at such a high speed that nothing can withstand them. Along the way, they see countless dead bodies and destroyed cars. Despite the devastation, John stays strong and keeps Emily and their son safe. They get very close to the airport and start heading toward the plane. But then John notices something terrifying: the last flight is about to take off. So, without caring about anything else, John drove his truck straight in front of the airplane. The pilot, seeing the truck blocking the runway, immediately stopped the plane. The pilot got down and angrily asked John what he was doing. John pleaded with him, saying, "Please help us. We need to get on this flight. I have a small child, and we are part of the selected families. We have to reach Greenland, where we will be safe." After hearing John's desperate plea, the pilot finally agreed and allowed their family to board the plane. Just like them, several other selected families were already seated inside. Soon, the plane took off, heading toward Greenland. After traveling for several hours, they were finally close to their destination. Greenland was considered the safest place at that time because of its numerous bunkers, designed to withstand massive explosions. But suddenly, a huge meteorite came crashing down near Greenland. The impact was so intense that the shock waves spread in all directions, even affecting the high-altitude plane. The turbulence made the plane go completely out of control. The pilot struggled but couldn't do much, and as a result, the plane crash-landed in a rocky area. Fortunately, only the front part of the plane was severely damaged, and the passengers inside remained unharmed. After the crash landing, the passengers slowly started exiting the plane, believing that the danger had passed. However, the real threat was yet to come. From a distance, they spotted the military base in Greenland. Soon, military officers arrived to rescue them. All the passengers were quickly transported to a massive underground bunker because scientists had predicted that a colossal meteorite was about to strike Earth. If this meteorite hit, more than half of the planet's population would be wiped out. To ensure survival, all the rescued people were transferred into the bunker as quickly as possible. Now, the moment had arrived for the massive meteorite to strike. As it entered the atmosphere and collided with Earth's surface, the explosion was so powerful that it triggered massive earthquakes. Everything around was destroyed in an instant. Even the people inside the bunker could feel the impact. It was more terrifying than any earthquake. Chaos had spread everywhere, and no one could control it. John held onto his family tightly as different visions flashed before his eyes, memories of joyful moments with his loved ones. He whispered, "I love you all so much." Suddenly, complete darkness engulfed the bunker. The catastrophe outside was so immense that it seemed like Earth itself was being wiped from existence. Then, the scene shifted to some time later, after the asteroid had struck. The entire planet was in ruins. Everything had been obliterated, making it seem as if human existence had been erased. However, according to scientists, this was the last asteroid. There would be no more meteor showers. But the atmosphere was still filled with strange gases, making the environment unsafe. Because of this, the people inside the bunker were instructed to stay there for a few more months. As time passed, Earth slowly began to heal, and the environment started returning to its original state. Finally, the bunker doors were opened. For the first time in months, the survivors stepped outside. But the sight before them was horrifying. Everything on Earth had been destroyed. It seemed like humanity would have to start over from scratch. It became clear that this was all part of a plan. The government had carefully chosen who would survive. The people left alive were those who could rebuild civilization: architects, politicians, doctors, and engineers. Ordinary people? They hadn't survived. John, now safe with his family, embraced them with relief. He was grateful that they had made it through. And with that, our story comes to an end.